Teachers of Reddit, what's the most outrageous thing a parent has ever said to you? She doesn't have to be smart. She has to be pretty. She will find a rich man, marry him and never use chemistry again. Well, she wasn't smart and she wasn't pretty, so there goes that. Smart, rich man here, I can confirm. We specifically search for stupid, ugly brides. A lack of knowledge in chemistry happens to be my fetish. Maybe not the most outrageous interaction, but it came with a twist. I had a helicopter parent get extremely aggressive and threatening when his daughter was given a B on her progress report. Whatever, dude. It's not a real grade. Chill. The student later earned an A because it was deserved, not because dad was bullying me. Fast forward about a year. He was arrested while on the family vacation to the home country for arranging and paying for his wife's murder. I wasn't that shocked, honestly. I teach math in an inner city middle school. I once had a parent tell me that I need to treat her with respect because she had a master's degree in typing and is not your typical trap B. Needless to say, she was the typical trap B. I was told I had their permission to punish their child if they were not getting 100s on everything. This was in an elementary school. I had a friend who got a 97 on his tests, so his parent refused to make him dinner. They let him make something himself, but he was not allowed to eat with them. One time, a parent whose kid committed plagiarism on an assignment about the Watergate scandal actually called me Nixon and demanded my resignation for, pointing out that their kid committed plagiarism. They failed intro to irony. During my work experience at a kindergarten, one of the mothers complained to the management about me. I happened to hear it because I was in the next room. She said I was a pedophile, because what other reason would there be for a male to work at a kindergarten? No wonder there aren't many males in that field. I encountered toxicity at every turn, except from the other teachers, who were great. Student and parent emailed trying to get me fired. Recipients: Principal, Board of Education, and Barack Obama. Student's mom told me, in detail, about her vaginal reconstructive surgery. Apparently she had it done because, after having children, her vagina just kept falling out. That does happen. Most women just don't go around telling strangers about it. That clearly the reason their son was making inappropriate sexual comments towards me was because I was enticing him with flirtatious private meetings. They were referring to the times I had to keep him back after class to lecture him on his behavior. I actually said, "Are you freaking kidding me?" Which, I admit, was also an inappropriate comment. Those parents are watching way too much P. A friend had a parent that insisted she redo all the report cards using software he created, rather than the software used by the school board. The parent also complained that it was unfair his child was given 0 on assignments the kid didn't do, because nobody had explained that not doing the assignments would affect the overall grade. My 7-year-old didn't tell me he was out of his ADHD meds, so we are out. Why aren't you making sure my child does his homework? The lack of parental responsibility amazes me. She said, "My son doesn't stutter, he's just shy." I was dumbfounded. I have been a speech and language pathologist for a long time, and that is the most ridiculous thing I have ever had a parent say to me. I really had to work to have a smooth reply. Not sure if applicable, but I am a college instructor and have a few students that are parents. One asked me if I would like to do blow with her in the parking lot after class. I always get the moms who think they know everything because they are a mom and have life experience. Having a kid doesn't mean you know more than the professor in a geology class. Not a teacher, but I was once a tutor of an extremely talented autistic kid. He was incredible at playing the violin. I was hired by his parents to help tutor him in all subjects. It was obvious that he was autistic, but his parents pressured him to act like a normal child. They pushed him very hard in his academics. I felt so bad for him. Anyway, my jaw dropped when his mother asked me, after 2 years of tutoring him, "Have you noticed that my son is autistic?" A few years ago, I had a couple come in to discuss the behavior of a child who kept disrupting class. He would curse, flip his peers off, and made other inappropriate gestures. Eventually I got sick of it and called them in. I don't know what kind of bull story he told them in order to make me look like the bad cop. I was actually appalled when his father had the audacity to call me a freaking Neanderthal for whatever the son told them I did to him. His mother wasn't much better either, saying that I was a buffoon for my actions. The punishment I gave him stuck, and I'm still questioning what kind of parents they were to this day. Go to start it out with let's make sure we are all on the same page. I want to hear why you think you are here before I go into things, then follow up with, well, good to know what misapprehensions I must correct first off. My stepmom is a teacher who had an incident of bullying in her class a few years ago. She called this kid's father, we will call the kid Billy, because Billy had been bullying another student. When my stepmom told Billy's father that Billy was harassing another student and calling him names like loser and nerd, the father replied, well, is it true? Is the other boy a loser? She didn't know how to respond. After a conference wherein each teacher present, 4-5, said the same things, student was disruptive, skipped class, didn't do work, etc. The mother turned to the guidance counselor and said, I don't understand why all these teachers lying on my son. Her eldest 2 sons were in jail. I suspect my student may have ended up there, too. Parent, I find it quite frankly ridiculous that what you claim happens bears absolutely no resemblance to the statement my 12-year-old son has written for me detailing the incident. And it's quite frankly appalling that you expect me to discuss it with you now whilst he is not sat beside me to verify that you are telling me the truth. I nearly hung up on that one, before explaining that I didn't find it that ridiculous that her son might have forgotten to mention that he hit another child around the face, called me a effing B and threatened to punch my lights out. This was the same mother who told me that I was denying her child's student voice. I told her he was allowed a student voice when used appropriately, not when his student voice was aggressively threatening me. I'm finding that I'm understanding my students a lot more once I've spoken to their parents. Teacher training does not place enough emphasis on advice for handling difficult parents. In dog training, they frequently say that there are no bad dogs, only bad owners. It's not completely true, but I think the same statement might apply to children parents. I come from a family of teachers and could probably come up with a handful of good ones, though the one that sticks out the most is from my mom, who was a PE and health teacher in a very small school in a local farming town. She also coached girls softball in the fall and track in the spring. One of the more affluent mothers in the community approached my mom at a track meet and told her that the kids didn't have enough fun activities to do during PE, and suggested that my mom approach school officials about horse riding. So my mom thinks she's talking about taking a trip somewhere close or whatever. Probably not gonna happen, but not outside the realm of possibility either. Turns out what the lady was really talking about was having a stable and an equestrian range field. Don't forget about the horses either. Her reasoning being that her daughter really enjoyed riding horses, so it was a totally reasonable thing to expect the school district to provide. My mom excused herself pretty quick and got back to the track meet. I mean, if she personally wants to front the money, then by all means. One of my teammates was told that the reason she had a student teacher was because she obviously couldn't handle her classroom herself. This year, I was asked if I work in special education because I couldn't get a job teaching regular kids. Took everything I had to not shout at this idiot. My cousin is a middle school teacher. There's been problems in the school where a bunch of parents are buying teachers' edition textbooks and having their kids memorize the answers at home so that they pass all the tests at school, not to mention that they do their homework for them. But the teachers started to suspect this was happening, so they would change around the order of the questions answers on the tests. Surprisingly, a bunch of the straight A students started bombing every test. When my cousin had to bring parents in to talk to them about it, one parent literally said, "You don't understand. It's more dishonorable to have bad grades than to be caught cheating." They literally do not understand how this is setting their children up for failure after graduation. Had a parent conference after. In just the first week, the 15-year-old boy told me to frick off when I asked him to get to work on the assignment. Then after I didn't throw him out after hearing that, screamed "Frick you. You can't tell me what to do" repeatedly as I finally did walk him to the office. Parent says the next day, "You should just let him get his way. It's easier." So many comments in this thread. I didn't think it was so prevalent that parents actually let their kids act like this. A special ed student during my student teaching was about to turn 18, and her mom and my supervising teacher went to absolute war over whether or not she would be told her diagnosis. She had been in special education for most of her life, yet had absolutely no idea that she had autism, high functioning but not Asperger's. The law required that she be allowed to attend her own IEP meetings and have access to her own records at 18. Her mother wanted to continue to hide her diagnosis from her. It was very tense. This baffles me. I have a daughter with roughly the same diagnosis, PDD-NOS, which is roughly the same as Asperger's, or at least close enough for this story, and we told her as soon as we thought she was old enough to understand. We felt it was vitally important for her to understand why she felt so different from everyone else. I had a parent chew me out for letting her daughter get bug bites at the daycare, on the playground, that happened to also have a barnyard and farm. When I tell people I'm a preschool teacher, they said I must have so much patience because of the kids. It's really the parents you need patience for. Funny added story. A mom made us stop playing Disney music because it was bad for her daughter's self-esteem, so we did, but the kids had already memorized Let It Go and sang it anyways. That I am a racist because I did not give her child an A on a paper that she chose to write on President Obama. The fact that it was poorly written, unsupported by factual evidence, and completely disorganized apparently should not be taken into consideration. Also, that science paper my child wrote on photosynthesis and which you gave a C on is discrimination against plants. I had one parent that couldn't control her child. Parents were divorced, but his dad would continually buy this kid stuff while the mom worked 2 jobs and couldn't pay rent due to the vandalism this kid did. He was like 11 or 12. She would take his Xbox, bike, etc. and hide it for bad behavior. The boy would just go and find it and use it anyways. She didn't have money to hire a sitter. She wasn't home enough to enforce the rules. I wish I could say this was unique, but when you are in the inner city it becomes norm. We were honestly lucky the mom took time off of work to meet with us. I told the mom to take the Xbox, bike, etc. and, instead of hiding it, take it, with the child, to the pawn shop, sell it and go buy herself some clothes or something nice. Funny thing is, I don't think she had the will to do it. She was honestly scared of her child. He left class about 2 weeks later because he and his mom were kicked out of their apartment complex. I came here to laugh at parents, not to feel sad for them. I had a student tell her parents that I was picking on her because I tossed her a piece of candy and she didn't catch it, so it hit her on her forehead. When that did happen, I apologized and she had said it was fine. You guys should know that before I tossed it to her, I asked her to come get said piece, and she said just toss it, and she wasn't so far away, maybe a few feet. Anyways, parents come in, call me every name in the book, and I couldn't care less. What got me fired up was that they called me racist for picking on their daughter because she's Mexican. I looked at them and said, are you serious? Is this some sort of a joke? And the mom proceeded to say, absolutely not. I can tell you're racist by looking right at you. To which I responded, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm Mexican. Retarded but parents. This was towards the end of the year, so I didn't have to interact much with them after that. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm Mexican. That family doesn't seem like one for keeping a sharp eye out. Shame. Had a student blatantly cheat in my class. Gave him a 0 and his mom comes in to chat. The mother said right away, without knowing what happened, my son would never cheat. And he certainly would never lie to me and has never lied to me. Showed her hard proof that he did and she still defended her son. It was sad. That or a mother who called my performance as an educator poor because her daughter got an F in my course. When I explained that her daughter didn't turn in any assignments and that I would have given credit if she had just turned something, and the mother still said it was my fault. She then proceeded to go to every administrator and tell her story of why I'm a terrible teacher. My mother automatically assumes I'm lying on the other hand, and the teacher had to ask me to tell my mom to stop coming to him. Dad is a retired teacher of over 25 years. The story that sticks out to me about messed up parents was an Pakistani father and mother who were visibly upset at their daughter for getting 1 B+ on her report card and asking my father to give her enough extra credit assignments for her to earn her A+. My father told her that grades don't really make that much of a difference in the 6th grade. and that they should reward her for getting the highest marks in the class, and probably the grade. They didn't understand. Haha, the Pakistani dad sounds like my dad. My dad is Pashtun and he was all about the A's. He felt that in elementary school I wasn't as good at math as I should be, even though I always got good grades, and over the summer he would make me do those math facts sheets over and over every day to improve my speed and general math knowledge. I still suck at math as an adult. I had a buddy land a job as a kindergarten teacher. It was open house and during this time parents and their children are introduced to their teacher and can check out the classroom. Well, one parent flips out because she doesn't want her daughter to be taught by a man because he will do things to her. The mother is making a scene and my buddy tries to calm her down. The next day the mother has a meeting with principal and tries to get my buddy fired. The principal and school counselor inform the mom that my buddy is qualified to teach and has completed his background checks. Mom is convinced and apologizes to my buddy. At least she recognized that she was wrong. A lot of people don't do that. Happened today at a parent meeting. The kid is barely passing, so we had the parents in. She's actually working hard and her grades are much higher than they were at the same time last year, but we all had noticed the girl seems down. Mom says low self-esteem is the issue. She's ashamed of her weight. This girl isn't a fashion model, but she isn't obese by any means. If she did any exercise at all, she would feel much better and start to look better. Mom then says she's getting a gastric bypass next week. The kid is flippin' 13. She ain't diabetic. Frick. Get her some running shoes. What kind of parent would think this is a good idea? What kind of doctor would take on such a case? Heaven help us. I wonder why the girl is having esteem issues when mom is allowing a bypass at 13. I don't know if it's outrageous, but it did put me into tears a few times. We had one boy who was casebook autistic, very stimmy, toe walking, sensory issues up the wazoo, constant pattern and repetition. He was non-verbal, which is why his parents enrolled him into our school, specializing in disability. They were hoping he would get speech therapy. The first month this kid was here, the staff involved with him brought the parents into a meeting to discuss having him assessed for autism, and the mother laughed and said no, he doesn't have that, he's just a late speaker. The parents were adamant that he just had a speech delay, and refused to have him tested. This meant that the kid would only get minimal funding, which means he would only get minimal therapy. This was the SLP coming in every other week to work with him for 15 minutes on PECs. It killed me because I loved this kid. He was an absolute goon and we hit it off pretty well. And to not be able to put the resources that were needed so he could learn to cope with his sensory issues, find a way to express his needs and wants, and give him a proper sense of security in the world frustrated me to the point where I ended up having a meltdown with him. Which looking back is kind of darkly hilarious if you picture me partially restraining him while he screams and cries, and I'm screaming and crying along with him. It was not a good day for anyone. Eventually, near the end of January, the mom specifically asked me for a meeting. This scared the crap out of me, but she sat down with me and asked to have the whole autism thing explained. A week after that, the parents asked for their son to be assessed, and then we were able to start giving him the support and therapy he needed. A good end. How rare. I had a father who had recently immigrated from India tell me that I had permission to beat his son if he misbehaved again. I also had a mother once tell me, in all seriousness, that I ought to cover her daughter's mouth with duct tape if she couldn't stop chatting during class. To the father's defense, that's how crap was done back in the day. He never had this problem with Mr. Dart. Be your mouth breather was mentioned by name in the note he left. Don't act like it's news to you that you've raised a hellraiser. My mom was a preschool teacher and was doing an annual activity making gingerbread houses at a local school. The teacher whose class she was in for the day kept trying to cut in and taking over her activity. After my mom told her to stop cutting in, the teacher said, "You are just a preschool teacher." What do you know? My mom was so livid she never did her annual activity again. Last year, parent to child who had a huge problem with cutting and shouting foul words. B. Get your butt over here. Why can't you behave like your sister? As the 9-year-old sister proceeded to draw on my wall with a crayon. Seriously, this year? Well, it's your fault for making him do things he didn't want to do. I was having a student do his simple worksheet, and he exploded and punched, kicked, and spit on me 5 times, 5 separate days. Yes, I filed charges. Yes, he went to juvie. 9 and still drawing on walls. Dang son. Parent of a high school freshman. My son is struggling so much. Can you send home a copy of the test ahead of time so he can prepare? Insert grumpy cat note meme. But my favorite, from a different mom, also of a high school freshman, was can you, the teacher who has 130 students every day, make sure he puts his homework in his homework folder every day? I want him to be better organized, but I just don't have the time. I have 5 kids. I'm not the teacher, but my cousin told us this crap he said to his daughter's teacher. Some backstory though. My cousin's daughter is spoiled as frick. She has 4 TVs, her own iPad, a cell phone, a laptop, every goddamn Barbie you can imagine, and she is 8 years old. And not only that, but she is constantly told she is the best and favorite child, in front of her 2 older siblings, and anything she wants she gets. If she asks someone to get her shoe 2 feet away from her they will, and if they don't she throws a freaking tantrum worse than you've ever seen. So this kid is a freaking monster. I blame my cousin. I honestly think the girl has mild autism and maybe ADD from the way she acts, but my cousin doesn't believe in that stuff, and even if he did, his princess is perfect. There is no way she could have those things. Anyway, since the kid is so used to everything being done her way and having everything done for her, she doesn't do well in school because she expects the teacher to do crap her way and she expects good grades. So the teacher called the parents and said, your daughter is having issues in class. You need to work with her in it. So they tried their balls and it did nothing, so the teacher suggested getting her tested. So my cousin decided to go to a homeopathic doctor to get her tested, and they said she has a gluten allergy and that's why she doesn't pay attention. So this is where the stupid crap comes in. They tell the teacher she isn't allowed gluten, but they send her to school with a freaking sandwich and other crap like that. You know, crap with gluten in it. So the teacher calls them up to tell them she was eating gluten, and my cousin says, well, bread isn't gluten. And my cousin was telling this story as if the teacher was the dumb one. Honestly, I feel bad for the kid. She is so fricked up and she won't get anywhere in life until she hits rock bottom, which will probably never happen until my cousin dies because he will take care of her. I work at a preschool. In our 2-year-old rooms, we have a regulation that the kids can't move into the 3-year-old room until they are mostly potty trained. Most of the students in there are 2, with a few that just recently turned 3. There is one boy that is 4. He is not potty trained because, in his mother's words, she doesn't want to force him. He should be in pre-K. Instead he is in the 2-year-old class for his 3rd year, extremely behind his peers educationally and emotionally, and has a mother that is apparently fine with letting him fail in life through no fault of his own. My sil finally got around to potty training my 5-year-old niece. They went to the open house for kindergarten last spring. Kid started kindergarten in September and asked who changes the kids' pull-ups diapers. The other parents say in stunned silence, and my sil was informed that her daughter was required to be potty trained. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.